Composite charts, that's what we're talking about today. One of the ways, one of the techniques we use in astrology to explore relationships. But this one is not that much about compatibility. It's not about chemistry between two people and how their energies mix up. It's about something very different. I know most of you know, but I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. For those that may be watching this later, or if you don't know, and just remind ourselves what this is all about. And then we'll look at charts as always. I've got a few examples as well. And what is this composite chart really? What's the essence of it? It is something third, something else, like almost like a child or a third entity, a third party. It is the relationship itself. So we call it the chart of the relationship. What happens when the two mix together, but when they mix, it's not affecting each other. So somebody's Mars is on my Venus or the other way around, or somebody's moon on my sun. It's something different. It's not like synastry. Here we're looking for the midpoints. The midpoints between the positions of every single thing in the two separate birth charts. And these are the near midpoints. Because if you think about it, we've always got two midpoints between positions. So if my sun in Scorpio is on the one side, somebody else's Capricorn sun, for example, is on the other side, we're looking for the middle between the two signs, but in the sequence of the zodiac. So we're going to have two of them. One will be more distant, one will be more near. So when you calculate a composite chart on your computer, it is always going to give you the near midpoint. Yeah, does that make sense? I hope it's clear. There are some very individual, unusual cases when the midpoint is difficult to find out. There are two midpoints that are equally important. That's when the 2 points, but they have to be the two suns, the two moons, the two Venuses. So the pair of same planets are located in their original places in the birth chart, exactly opposite each other by degree. So if my sun in 0 Scorpio is located opposite somebody's 0 Taurus sun, then our composite sun could be either in Aquarius 0 or in Leo 0. Yeah, but there is no real answer here. Which one of the two is the real composite sun? What Liz Green is suggesting is that in such cases we go to the personal charts and we see which one of the two possible houses and signs is more active in the charts of the participants of the composite. So we are using the composite to figure out what is this relationship between two people about. What is its purpose, its direction? Why does it exist? I'm going to share my screen quickly with you. There is a quick quote here. I've prepared a few quotes. So here it's about the composite sun, actually this one. And I think the same thing can be said about everything else in the composite chart. It's not just the sun, but the sun in general is this purpose thing. So the composite sun, she says, Liz Green, will tell us what a relationship is meant to be. What is its function? Why does it exist? What is it here for? The composite sun also points to what constitutes the highest value of the relationship. So basically, the way I understand it, and to me, the composite chart is extremely interesting, even more than the synastry. They're very different. But synastry is, yes, this energy dynamic, energy exchange between the two charts, how we push each other's buttons. And you know that you can have a synastry chart calculated not just in romantic love relationship situations, but it could be between any two people that have to have something to do with each other, including in families. And the same holds true with composites. We can have a composite chart between ourselves and our parents, our children, and so on. And that is also answering that question of what this third entity, the relationship itself, which only exists if we interact. So if we never meet the person, if we never have a conversation at least, or some sort of interaction, there could also be reading the works of somebody that died 300 years ago, for example. You can still have a composite chart with that altar, because yeah, they are not affecting you or them directly as a synastry would do, but there is something like an energy field which is created separately by the interaction of the two charts, the two horoscopes in that midpoint way. There's obviously one more way to, which I don't know a lot about technically, of calculating composites apart from the midpoints. And this is to do with location of where the two people live or where they were born. Liz Green says in her book, I will show you which book I have in mind, that this doesn't make a lot of sense to her because obviously we can relocate in our lifetime, or people meet each other when they live in different places. So that relocation or location-based composite chart may be interesting as well. I haven't explored it. What I'm going to be showing you today as examples, and maybe you would have the same, is the midpoint methods, that calculation of where everything is as a middle point between the two charts. So the book that I have been reading about composites, the one that I probably learned the most about them, is a seminar that Liz Green did more than 20 years ago. And that's here, Relationships and How to Survive Them, it's called. So that's something that you can get online, and it's very interesting. Have you read it? I like the title very much because there is something she says very impersonal about the composite chart. The composite chart is not a person. It cannot make decisions. It cannot have feelings, even though it's something separate from the two participants. So obviously it cannot have an attitude towards the aspects or the energy, the positions of the planets in signs and houses. It's something that we can we cannot really control. So the two people can't really control the composite. It's probably the most fated thing in the relationship. But at the same time, when we change our own attitude towards things in our charts, then this affects the dynamic of the relationship. It is interesting that this composite chart is showing us, for example, the sun, of why we have come together, what we've got to contribute to the outside world more than anything else. So joining hands with another person, how we interact with the outside world, and what this relationship is meant to do, good or bad. Well, that's probably going to be depending on our efforts as well at the end of the day. So another quick quote I wanted to share with you is, in general, so when a relationship matters to us, again, Liz Green, they're all from her this time, we will always find that composite planets and angles land on our natal planets and angles. Usually there is at least one conjunction or opposition within a degree of exactness. So that's very common. I have been playing quite a lot with composite charts because they're very interesting for me. And interestingly, they are extremely accurate. I see this more clearly for couples that I know them. Or people that are in the same family. I know them and I know what they are about together. It's also something like the effect of the ascendant. So the energies of the composite chart are usually a very good reflection of what these two people look together, or what kind of impression they make to others when they observe them as a couple or as a team. And that may be very different from what they are individually. So I see a lot of coincidences where things in the composite are connected, as she says here, exactly by the degree, by square, opposition, conjunction, to something in the personal chart of one of them or both of them. And also, in my case, for example, with my parents, there are several coincidences of positions in their composite chart that they then have translated into my chart. So I've got planets on degrees that are the same degrees in the same signs as certain things in my parents' composite chart. So that's something to explore, each one of you, if you want, in your own time. But it's quite interesting. Then another quote here I've only got 4. So it's about the progressed composite moon. So there is such a thing as a progressed composite. And uh, it's how the relationship develops over time. What sort of trials and tribulations and challenges and changes it goes through, how it adjusts itself over the course of its existence. So if you check the progress composite with someone, that's not going to be the same, obviously, as the original one. The original one sets the general tone, but this progress one is really showing us where we are at with our relationship at that point. And it is very easy to calculate again because now we have the 2 progress charts of the people. So my progress chart and another person's progress chart positions give us the progress chart positions of the composite. And you know how in progression, the most effective, let's say, factor of change is the moon, because all the other 4 personal planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, by progression move very slowly over time. Only by, probably each one of them they're very close to the speed of the Sun, and the Sun moves with just 1 degree per day or per year. Not much of a change. So the relationship has to be very long, maybe more than 10 years or even longer, for progressed Sun, Mercury, Venus, or Mars to change significantly their positions so that we can see that reflected in what happens with the relationship. But the progress moon is really powerful because it moves by 1 degree per month. So every month it sits in another degree of the zodiac. And what happens, it's really interesting when one of the 2 people has natally something going on where that moon is currently. And if you have a planet in your chart where the progress composite is at that moment, then you become the agent of that particular thing happening in the relationship through your planet. So if your Venus sits on the composite progressed moon, then you would be the one that is bringing harmony and pleasure, as she's saying here. So, okay, the example is a little different. When the progress composite moon conjunct our Venus, so that means our birth Venus, we may be the one who brings harmony and pleasure to the relationship. But when the progress composite moon conjunct the composite Venus, so that's a different thing. So we have a composite Venus as well. So if the composite moon comes to the Venus, then it's the relationship itself is passing through a phase of harmony and affection. Yeah, so that's just a way of distinguishing the effect of the composite to the natal and the effect of the composite to itself. Yeah, I'm very, if any of you knows and wants to tell me how, I mean, with what software I can put transits on top of composite charts so I can see how the current transits in the world, on the sky right now, are affecting the composite chart, because astro.com, I think, doesn't have such an option. I can look at the composite separately, and then I need to, remind myself where the transits are at the moment and see whether something is being activated. But I didn't find a way to have them really on top of each other. I know the big software do that. I know that, like, things like how was it, Solar Fire does it and so on, but I don't have it. So if you know a free method, let me know. But the composite chart is affected by transits like a normal chart. We can treat it basically like a birth chart. That's how it looks like, the composite. And it is really affected pretty much in the same way. But the slower planets take longer to come into effect, and they account for change that comes over the course of months. And then when it's exact, we can really feel a change in the relationship. And the faster ones are more pronounced as like trigger points short term. And finally, I've got another quote here, which is to do with an example of a transit happening. I think this was about the transit, but the sign, no, this is the position of a natal, let's say original, not progress composite, but the actual composite. So the position of a planet, and here it's a Saturn example. the sign in which Saturn is placed in the composite tells us something about the qualities we feel we lack or have been denied. And the house placement will tell us something about the sphere of life through which we experience the denial. So separately, we may not have any problems with our Saturn, or we may not feel like Saturn is blocking in a synastry way anything. But here, there may be a placement of Saturn in the composite that brings challenges, possibly from outside, to the two people when they are together. Say they have some sort of obstruction of being together, or a common thing to strive against, whatever. There are so many different options. But it is, yeah, ultimately something that hits you from outside, and you don't have that much to do about it, even though I believe we can always do something about it by changing our attitude about our own placements. And then when they get mixed up with the other person's placements, things could be tilted to some sort of a more positive expression than the other way around. And because I want to leave time for you to give your examples, I know some of you may have examples, I wanted to show you my example of a composite situation. And I discovered a lot about it as I was exploring it for today, something that I would be happy if you give me your opinion on. This is something personal, because I thought it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to give you an example of a composite I've got with someone I don't really know very well or haven't interacted with very well. So I just use my partner. We have been together for 15 years now, so it's been quite a long relationship so far. And you would see that the composite is quite interesting as a shape, as a way it looks. And I always start with personal charts, regardless of whether it's a composite or a synastry, because I think we need to see them before we jump to the common chart, as it's really important to figure out if there are any connections between the person and the composite. So that's my chart very quickly. You know it already, you've seen it before. I will just stress on a few things here so we can see it together in the composite. I just have a lot of planets in Scorpio, and they are bunched up around the descendant mostly. So mine is kind of a descendant chart. So many things around this side, the eastern part, sorry, the western part is called actually, of the chart, of the wheel, and not that much going on in the rest of it. I've got both my sun and moon in Scorpio, so there is a lot of Scorpio going on. And they're opposite the ascendant. Then when we look at my partners, oh, that's not it. That's not it too. That's my partner's chart. And here we've got something like a mirror image. A lot of planets in Scorpio and Venus and Libra again, but on the ascendant side of the chart. So the two are kind of, if we were looking at a synastry, the two will be overlapping, but ascendant of one will be where the descendant is of the other, but that's another story. That would be the synastry. So here we expect to see in the composite a lot of similar placements by signs. So we expect to see, of course, the sun in Scorpio, because we both have it in Scorpio, and it makes sense for the midpoint to also be in Scorpio. Okay, I just wanted to show you that quickly. So we both have pretty much the same signs represented, but in very different parts of the charts. Now I'm going to show you the composite, which is this. Yeah, that's the original composite. And now we see that because we were ascendant and descendant charts, we now have a composite which is bunched up. Everything is either on the top or on the bottom. So in this case, it's at the top of the chart. There is a big stellium in the 9th house, very close to the 10th house, with even more things in Scorpio going on here than in the original. And the sun is right on the MC, pretty much, with Mars also right on the MC. And so Pluto, Venus, Mercury, Saturn, the sun and Mars, so much in Scorpio around the 9th, 10th house. Really, I can say it's been a very philosophical relationship, if I can say so. A very great accent of what we always revolve around is philosophizing, talking. There's been a lot of discussion, especially in the early years, a lot of like truth-seeking kind of thing through conversation. And even though it's Scorpio, this is another example of how much more powerful the houses are than the signs. And it's a common idea. Liz Green shares that idea as well, that in the composite chart, the position of things in houses is more to do with what this relationship is about than the signs, even though the signs are also interesting. Where the signs are really interesting is how other people see us. So other people tend to look at the couple and they see the expression of the archetypal energies of the signs of the zodiac in a way that cannot be displayed by a single person through their birth chart. Because this chart is very impersonal. It's got no feeling, it's got no temperament on its own. So basically, my individual sun in Scorpio is not really a pure one. Because when I express it, it is a question of how well I express it as a person. And there are so many other things mixed with it. It's my moon there, clouding it. There are all the other planets. There is my maturity, my wisdom, how well I have developed my sun. So what other people can see from me is not really a very pure Scorpio sun, is an example. But when they see the couple expressing a composite sun, any sign, then this is really an example of that energy on its own. So that's I thought this is a very good learning thing. So if we want to learn about the signs, we can observe how people in their couples display their composite energies. And the most obvious for us has been actually this Aquarius ascendant and Aquarius moon. The chart itself is very Aquarian and very Uranian. And we both have very strong Uranus in the charts separately. If we go back, you can see that my partner's got Sun conjunct Uranus exactly on the ascendant. So he's got Sun conjunct Uranus conjunct the ascendant, and it's in the first house. Uranus is extremely important in his chart. He's a typical Uranian. He's very independent, very single-minded in many cases, away from the crowd in many, many respects. I don't want to go into it very much. But look at that Uranus here. It's on the 26th degree of Scorpio. And my chart shows, this is my chart now, I've got my moon on that same degree. So we have this synastry, I know, not composite, but in synastry, my moon conjuncts his Uranus exactly. And you know how the more exact an aspect, the more powerful it is. So that kind of Uranian aspect dominates. And at the same time, in the composite chart, sorry, that's something else. This is it. In the composite chart, we've got a double Aquarian signature coming from somewhere else. Yeah, but it's just repeating the same topic. And we are very often being perceived as well, I wouldn't say eccentric, really eccentric, because we're not very eccentric, but we are strange for other people. They kind of can't explain us as a couple. We don't do many things that are, typically expected in the standard way. We have kind of our own opinion of how to run the couple in a way. We're not married, and we're not, kind of neither against it, not for it, but we're kind of very Uranian about it. Our moon in the 12th in Aquarius is very private. So it's very difficult to understand what's the underlying thing. It's really behind the scenes. And what is out there and visible about us is really the Sun and the Mars. We work together. We have been partnering in work for many years. Now we separated things. But it's been a very, how can I say, the first thing we jumped into, having our own business together. So the 10th house is pretty dominant in the relationship. And this is probably the easiest part of the easiest sphere of life for us. There are many others which are not that easy. And the South Node is conjunct Uranus. So that's another confirmation to me that this relationship is coming from a Uranian standpoint, it's got something to overcome there. The major issues we have are also revolving around Uranian topics or Moon in Aquarius topics. So we don't have the time to go much into it, but this is very much, I can just confirm to you that this chart is very much to the point in every single point of it. The North Node conjunct Chiron in the fourth, uh, the part of fortune in Taurus, this Jupiter, this very nice Jupiter, that's actually, you see how the shape of it is very interesting because we have this many planets in Scorpio that are aspected by one planet very in a very pronounced way, which is the moon, all those squares to the moon, to all of pretty much all of them. And then we've got the trine from Jupiter on the other side. And what is really interesting to me is that in his chart, that's his chart, the moon is a singleton. So the moon in Aries is a singleton, which means it's kind of one of those bucket charts. That's the handle of the bucket. You know, all those planets are here and the moon is the only one on the other side, if we don't count Chiron. In my chart, Jupiter is a singleton in the same way. So everything grouped here, Jupiter on the other side. So isn't that interesting? How then in the composite chart, we've got exactly the moon and Jupiter that are the two planets now aspecting the concentration of planets in Scorpio. Yeah, so we have been talking about this quite a lot over the years, so it's interesting. But now I want you to show you the progressed composites, because now...
Can I ask quickly?
Yes, of course, go ahead.
What's the Scorpio side of your business that people see?
Our business has never been like this real work business, the one we had and still have in London, which is a company for refurbishing properties, something to do with Scorpio, I believe, or very little to do. Even though a lot of it, if you look deeper, a lot of what we do is actually customer service, and we work with people directly one-to-one, and there is a lot of psychologizing involved there. So over the course of 3-4 months when we need to work for a client, it's not only about the practical part of the job, of what needs to happen in that project for the, for the service to be delivered. It's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of analyzing of what these people need and how they want to be dealt with, how they need to be approached in order for things to go smoothly over the course of this, project management, task. So there has been a lot of, we only discovered astrology 7 or 8 years into our relationship. So we had already been together for more than 7 years when we got together simultaneously and very naturally, and just started reading about it, and one thing led to another. We got interested together in astrology. So astrology has really been the common denominator, scorpionic one, between us ever since that happened. And exploring the synastry chart and the composite chart was one of the factors that brought me and us together into astrology even more, because we saw so many confirmations in them of what had already been going on in our relationship before we discovered it. So it's always been, ever since, I was very lucky to have someone to talk to about astrology, and still am, because you know how lonely that can be. When you start learning it, you begin talking another language, a foreign language, and you are so anxious to talk it with other people, but when others don't know the same language, it becomes very awkward, because you're either imposing something on them that they're not ready for, like this jargon of astrology, or simply you cannot have the same depth of exploration and going into it if you don't have someone there speaking the same language. So I have been really lucky about this. So at the same time, this Mars on the MC and the Sun is really, we are good in business together. We have this common sense of where to go, what to do, what kind of step to make, what to invest in, So what software to buy, for example, or whether to say no to this client and accept the offer of the other client. So there has been a lot of strategizing. We're easily strategizing together in business. But this is the business, yeah, that's nothing to do with other aspects of the relationship. So so that I don't spend too much on my own case, I wanted to show you two more things. So this is, let me see, yeah, so that's the first one. This is for today, the progress composite. So again, with my partner, but this is now the progress one. And you see, we still have a big stellium in the ninth house, but now everything has moved, shifted to Sagittarius. That's such a Sagittarian picture now, because not only the ninth house, but also in Sagittarius. There isn't that much of a concentration of Scorpio now. We've got just Saturn and Pluto that would ultimately never move very much because they're slow planets. In the composite, they want, in the progression, they would not move. And they're still there. They're in the eighth house. But all of these other planets, so every single personal planet, including the moon, the progress moon, is currently in the same place. And what I noticed today when I looked at this, and originally we also have the South Node in Sagittarius, and it's still there. So what I noticed is that the way the sun and the moon are here, they are approaching a progressed new moon position. And you see the moon is in the 11th degree of Sagittarius, and the sun is currently in the 21st degree of Sagittarius. Now today they are 10 degrees apart. And the progress moon is moving 1 degree per month. So very simple maths give me 10 months from now, they would be together. And then that 10 months from now is next year in August. And in a minute, I'm going to show you what would have happened by this time, how the progress moon will move forwards and will reach the position of the sun here in 21st degree. It will be the 22nd degree by that time of Sagittarius. So you see on the next one, let's see where that is. That's it now. So this is next year. Progress composite in August. And you can see how we've got the sun, the moon, and Venus. So that's even more. So 3 planets together, not just the progress new moon, which is like a once in a lifetime event, but also Venus is there, another personal planet. And I was curious to check then what this is all about in the Sabian symbols. What is this 22nd degree of Sagittarius? And that's the astrological mandala by Rudyard, and we've got a Chinese laundry is the symbol. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds familiar, but that sounds familiar because, and this is really an example of what we are looking for if we analyze charts like this. This is my partner's chart again. And we've got something here in that same degree. His Neptune in the second house is exactly on that degree of Sagittarius. So what happens is that next year in August, when we go through that change, it's definitely something at stake there for us. It's something of an enormous change coming forwards, that's for sure. I will come back to you to tell you what happened next year, but it's going to affect him directly. It's going to hit his Neptune directly. I also have things in Sagittarius. I've got my Saturn on the 18th degree. I've got my Uranus on the 24th degree. So it's a bit of like a midpoint between my Saturn and Uranus, but he's more relevant because he's got something exactly on that degree. And then just to mention that our exploration of his chart has come to the conclusion that it's something like all the roads lead to Mars in that chart. and Mars conjunct Neptune. Why all the roads lead to Mars? Because he's a sun in Scorpio. Traditional ruler is Mars. Moon in Aries, ruler is Mars. Ascendant in Scorpio, ruler is Mars. Mercury is also the same thing. And then Venus makes exact 0-degree sextile to Mars in the chart. And so on. And Venus conjuncts Pluto, Pluto goes back to Mars. So this is Mars is a very big player in that chart as a personal planet. And Mars conjuncts Neptune, and Neptune is going to be activated next year in our relationship by what is going to happen through the progress composite. And now finally, the symbol. And here I would like to hear what you guys may say. What's your opinion? What's your suggestions? Because as you probably know, we are Bulgarians with my partner, and we have immigrated to the UK 14 years ago, 15 years ago. We basically, that's when we started living together in the UK. He was there a little earlier, a couple of years earlier than me. But basically, it's a bit of a like living in another culture, another place, not the original place where we're from situation. And now we live in Spain partially, so it's yet another country that we have moved to. And this symbol is saying making use of one's special racial cultural background in order to survive and prosper in an alien environment. And I'm not going to read it all. I think this says a lot already. Maybe you know that the UK is going out of the European Union this year in January. And so basically from next year, there will be a different thing going on politically, economically, for people that are from other places, even though we both have residence in kind of settlement status in the United Kingdom. We don't know what is going to happen. Everything could happen, especially in that situation in the world now where everything is very volatile and unstable and so on. So we have been starting asking today questions because I discovered this today that next year our progress composite Sun, Moon, and Venus are going to be on this degree. I'm wondering what is at stake and what is going to happen. He's a little bit more pessimistic. He says something negative is going to kind of push us away from maybe from the UK, and we may find shelter in Bulgaria. We may find shelter in, I don't know, in Spain again, because we've got this European connection with Spain. And this is where this racial cultural background may come into play. I'm a little bit more positive. I think that if something negative is to be expected in the world or in the UK, that maybe we can deal with it in a more, I don't know, beneficial way because of our cultural background. But I don't know. What do you guys think about all of this?
Do you have the settled status?
Yes. Well, theoretically, by the book, we should be safe. There isn't anything like directly, we don't have passports, but we don't really need to have passports because we have been there for so many years. We have gone through that process of registering for status and so on. So that should be all right. But if something negative comes up, it would be something surprising, something that nobody expects. I mean, maybe a new policy or something. I don't know. Maybe nothing really. But I thought this whole thing, looking at the individual charts, then how they translate into the composite, and then how we can go back from the progress composite to the personal is really interesting journey, which could be used as an example for your own, anybody's exploration. And the Sabian symbols are always revealing about what the nature of that situation would be involving, I think.
Well, when you look at the Sabian symbol, it's a completely, I see it as a very positive one. It uses the word survive and prosper.
Exactly. That's what I was telling him.
And it has none of the, and so you think when everything, especially with Venus there, with your moons, progressed moons, and Neptune, I see it as somehow it's going to be of a benefit but I don't know how, and I don't think we can predict the how.
Oh yes, of course. I'm not expecting you to. I'm not expecting you to, but yeah, that's I'm always looking for feedback on the symbol, how you see the symbol, and because we had this like different interpretations. I was more voting with a positive because this sounds very positive to me. It sounds more like being able to be sheltered because of the background rather than the other way around.
It does sound that way. That's what it's offering
Mhm.
as a symbol. It's not offering the negative, especially with Venus happening to come along in the package with, I think it will be a very deepening time for the two of you.
I hope so. I'm actually very hopeful personally about this moment next year. I think this is really going to be a new beginning of some sort. And I like that it's happening in Sagittarius in the 9th house. So this whole thing, it sounds very Jupiterian, really about prosperity and overcoming things that possibly some of the things that we have been struggling with. It's really every time you've got a progress new moon, it's a chance. Personally, if you have it in your chart,
Maybe you're going to be surrounded by a lot more positive people who don't, who because of the separation from the European Union, people are going to cherish you more than ever because they realize that the diversity among their sameness is changing. So those that already are embedded in will be extolled or exalted.
Yeah, possibly.
How's
Yes.
that?
Yeah, in a very practical way, what is expected is that for people that are settled in the UK, from next year, it will simply be more difficult to travel
Yes,
in the countries of the European Union.
yes.
Is that we actually, being Bulgarian, so this is where the racial cultural background comes in. So we being Bulgarian, and having European passports is giving us like an outlet. It's giving us another option. So we can be in the UK, but we can also travel. So we don't lose the right to travel the way that people that are, settled just there. Yeah,
I think I'd look at something more like that. You realize the benefit that you already established yourself in Europe, so you can be in 3 different places in Europe.
exactly. No, that's what we're hoping for at least. But I have a suspicion that this may bring us back to our home country in a way that we have been very distant from our home country in the last 15 years. And we have been just visiting for very short times to see family, and nothing really had been going on. And this Christmas time, for the first time, we're going to have a gathering, a family gathering, which has never been done before there. So we're going back there for almost a month or something like this. So I have a suspicion that this may be the beginning of a renewed connection to the roots, the racial cultural background. But anyway, enough for us. I think I should stop here. So
Wait, Radilina,
yes,
can I just ask one question? Can you go back to the chart?
yeah. Which one do you want to see?
There are so many.
I mean, I missed a lot of this, so just the most recent one you were using.
So I was showing everyone. I was showing everyone my chart, my partner's chart separately, then our composite chart, then our progress composite chart,
Uh-huh.
and a progress composite for next year, where we're going to have progress new moon in the composite, which is something of a big event.
Yeah, so can you go to that progress new moon chart?
Yeah.
And before I ask you my question, what is the signification of the progress new moon in the composite?
To be honest, I don't know, because I started thinking about it today for the first time when I discovered this. And theoretically, I knew that there is a composite, progress composite, and all the positions in it we usually explore the same way as we explore a normal composite. But I never realized that we can have a situation when the people are going through a new moon in the composite. Of course we can. And I don't know. I think of it the same way as I would think of my own progress new moon. But here we're just talking about our relationship, isn't it? So we together as a team are going to go through something of a new start, of a new cycle beginning. And yeah, it's again going to be a 30-year one. So if we are, alive and well and still together through the next phases, then now something of a completely different tone is going to be affecting the relationship.
Well, look, I'll just give you my quick interpretation, but I don't know if these like progressed composite charts are, you look at them the same way as regular natal charts or anything else, but I see the progressed new moon happening right on top of the midheaven together with that Venus, and then Jupiter is obviously controlling all of this, and he's in the 4th house in Cancer, so he's exalted. He's having a pretty sweet trine from Saturn in the 8th. For me, this is like you going back home to Bulgaria. This is just my interpretation.
Possibly, possibly. There may be another thing. We haven't been very homely up to this point. We have been jumping around too much, working, experimenting, living a very Sagittarian kind of style of life. This 4th house Jupiter in Cancer may have to do with something like a more family kind of direction. We don't have kids yet. Not that we are, really, really planning, but who knows? Maybe that's something coming up anyway in the next years at some point. So it could be to do with this. Not that much with relocating, but possibly, why not? We are open to that as well. We wouldn't probably deliberately go back to Bulgaria. We have disconnected culturally quite a lot, but we may need to go because of something external. And you know how the composite chart is so much about external circumstances. Yeah, it's where the relationship is led. It itself is leading the two people somewhere. So maybe you're right. Yeah.
Elena, I have a question.
Yeah, Stephen.
Okay, and this is concerning the methodology of your chart there from Astrology. The idea of the composite chart is taking the midpoints of the two of each of the two planets, but it's outside of time. So the idea of the composite is not really considered a chart. It's a midpoint analysis. So what I'm curious about, I have Solar Fire software, and since the composite chart is based upon midpoints, there is no time-space axis. There's no longitude or latitudes. So the idea of progressing a midpoint chart without any time. So the idea of how can a progressed chart with as a lunar cycle, it can't exist.
Okay.
Now,
let me answer. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Stephen. I thought you were finished.
Okay, because the idea is that historically, the composite chart was developed in the early 1970s. Historically, the Ronald Davidson relationship chart was also developed in the 1970s, but the Davidson chart, it takes the midpoint of their natal demographics, so it has a time-space coordinate.
Okay, let's make the distinction.
And in that particular regard, that one can be progressed, because the idea is that represents the relationship, and what you were describing is a composite chart represents an idealization of the archetype of the relationship, is mixing the vegetables together in one bowl of soup.
Not exactly. I really need to clarify that for you and for everyone else. What you're saying is true for the actual composite. The actual composite has no time factor in it. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But when we talk about the progressed composite, what we're doing is not progressing the actual composite chart itself. What we're doing is we are doing another exercise of creating a new composite by using this time the data, not from the birth chart, from the original birth chart, but the data from the respective progressed charts of the two people. And if my progressed chart is...
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. All right. All right. You're progressing the natal charts and then doing a composite of that.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Very clear now. I how the hell is Astrology progressing a midpoint chart without time? Okay.
Well, this is such a good point you raised, because that's very important. Yeah. Not everybody realizes what you said, that the progress is not a time thing. And yes, it's not. It's so abstract. It's so like something that we can, it's controversial at the end of the day. What I tell you, I think it means, you can have a different opinion. But this is very interesting about the progress, because, I have progressed in my life. He has progressed in his life.
Correct. Yeah.
Adjusted, I'm meant to have adjusted, and now it's interesting how that affects the relationship itself. I guess that this whole thing with the progress composite could work really well if we have separately been following our own individual, let's say, pathways, destinies, and so on.
Well, that's exactly my point about using the Davison chart, because the Davison chart represents the relationship of an individual to the relationship to the other. So the relationship is almost a third quality of the two people being together, rather than just mashing them together and say, oh, we have a new person here, you know, and this is Tweedledee, Tweedledum as a single unit with the same last name, meaning the whole marriage idea.
Absolutely. And I'm so interested in being able to calculate a synastry chart between myself and the composite chart of my relationship. You see?
Oh, yes.
The composite is one side of the synastry, and myself is the other side of the synastry. But I haven't. Astro doesn't allow us to do that. But yeah, no problem. We'll explore that in other software. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Well, another thought I wanted to add in terms of the historicity, because all this stuff wasn't available until computers. It wasn't able to be done. Now, in the Solar Fire software, one of the options I have for combined chart is called a coalesce chart. Are you familiar with that?
No, I just haven't been using. So far, I haven't purchased any other software. I don't Fire, but
let me just briefly explain that the coalesce chart isn't based upon midpoints, but it's based upon taking the shortest arc, which you were describing before, the shortest arc between two planets, and finding a harmonic factor between that, dividing by 360, and then taking that harmonic and then multiplying that to the original point, and that becomes a coalesce point. And now in that particular regard, it represents a composite based upon harmonics rather than midpoint. And in that, what you're referring to, the relationship specifically, using yourself as an example, both you and your life partner are living are expressing your life in a way of an increased sense of self-awareness. I would like to say that. And in that particular regard, the harmonics within the combination of two people's lives is different than a real midpoint, because the harmonics suggest a dynamic flow. So as you were explaining, you know, you put the stuff on the screen. I was writing real quick. So, you know, I have your natal chart. I got Anton's natal chart, and I went back to my solar software, and I did a coalesce chart. Now this would be new data for you. And if I do a shared screen, let me just put it up, okay?
All right. Yes. Let me stop sharing on my side so you can do it.
All right.
So.
And because as you were describing your internal dynamics, I'm looking at this coalesce chart. And I go, well, now this is a whole different. Bunch of soup. I want to get.
Soup is good.
Damn it.
Hey, Stephen, while you're pulling that up, I just have a quick question, just for my own understanding.
There.
Yes.
You see it?
Hold on for a second, Stephen. While you share, we have a question.
Madonna, look at that chart. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, my question was about, okay, so you cannot progress a composite chart. You take your individual progressions and then you compose that.
Sure.
So I was just wondering how you arrived to that new moon. I mean, how did you know you would have a progressed new moon together?
Okay. Can I?
No, see, that was my question, is that I was looking at the straight composite chart and saying, well, mathematically, that's impossible to progress a new moon if we're just working on midpoints, because there's no time involved. That was why I was wondering where methodology was, that she took the progression of each and then made a composite of that.
So if the progressed moon, the moon itself, is somewhere at that particular point that we check at the moment, then it is by progression, we know that it's moving with 1 degree per month. So if we check, so I just noticed they were close. The sun was further into Sagittarius, the moon was earlier in Sagittarius at the moment today. But so obviously, if the progress chart changes over time, that's why it's progress, isn't it? The progress composite. And what is going to change in 10 months is that the moon would have moved 10 degrees forward, because we know what its speed is. And then I just went to played with it, and I went to August next year, and then it was confirmed that really August next year, the progress composite, because both of our composite moons separately would have moved forward, and then the new midpoint would be exactly on that 26th.
Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of an interpretation about this progress new moon composite. If it's you have a business in London,
Mm-hmm.
which is not astrology, you are developing your astrology,
So,
and at some point your astrology and maybe your partner is developing something.
well, only me professionally, but he's more like a something like a hobby for him. And anyway, he's not that much deep into it now after several years. But generally, just for background quickly, we don't do astrology. So we wanted to give away or to move away, and still want to over time, because we haven't done it completely, to move away from the business in London, and to each one of us to concentrate into whatever things we're interested in separately. And we still help each other with the respective things, but we're not working together now. So my thing is astrology. His thing is something else. So he's a videographer. He does, very Neptune conjunct Mars things, sort of thing. So that's why I think maybe his work with this Venus conjunct the progress new moon next year in the composite, and all of these things being on his Neptune conjunct Mars, maybe he would be more effective. His work will be more effective. Things like that. But yeah, generally that's the thing. We are splitting away from the business, trying to. So basically, it's only me now dealing with the business, and hopefully in another couple of years, I won't be there too. So I would be, concentrating totally on astrology. But we'll see. With a bit of luck. So what did you have in mind, Jean-Marc?
Yeah, that your plan will start actually at the date of your progress new moon.
Well, fingers crossed. Yeah, that sounds like a very good opportunity. Yeah. That's because it's also on the MC, so it makes sense for the orientation towards business work of the couple to change in a new direction at that point. Yeah, totally. I agree with you. Yeah. Okay. Well, enough about me. Let's move on. Let's move on to something else. Who else wants to share something about the chart? I'm sorry, Stephen, I'm sorry. Please share your screen. I just got distracted and I forgot. But please share your screen before we move on to clear that.
There. All right. Now, that kind of gives you a different picture of, again, thinking of a person and their relationships as multifacets on a gem. So in terms of, let's say, involving oneself in an introspective consideration of one's own relationship with other people, we take photographs, we go professional photographs, we get proofs. You say, oh, which was my best angle? Oh, I was smiling, my thing was great. But the idea of, being able to utilize the three, a composite chart based upon midpoints, the Davison chart based upon the midpoints of the birth data, although the Davison chart has a real problem if the difference between the births is more than 20 years. It doesn't work out. It's kind of like higher latitudes. But then also to be using the coalescent chart based upon harmonics. Now, I'm suggesting this because, let's say, this particular group having, let's say, an intrinsic interest in developing astrological artistic skills, most people are unfamiliar totally with harmonics within a chart, but they can say, okay, meat and potatoes, numbers, and then midpoint. Then you just leave it at that. But the idea of you looking at an underlying harmonic between a two-pieces chart goes back to what you were talking about a few weeks ago about the Libra function of the harmonic, meaning the balance in between. So if you find a harmonic number where it brings the two people and a coalescence rather than a composition where they get kind of smashed together, but the coalition blends a harmonic as a relationship. To me, this a coalesce chart is a way of being a little more sophisticated in terms of looking at the inner dynamics and the inner growth within the individual.
So could you just explain, because maybe even I don't know exactly how you calculate, what is the calculation behind this? And
as a matter of fact, I have that all ready for you. And what I'll do is I'll send that as a file attachment. I mean, I'll put it in the, let me see, there we go. What I'll do is I'll put it in the comment section, and then everyone can open it up, okay?
Okay. So you see, there's so many techniques of calculating, you know.
Because I was doing some homework about this. I've got to do the stop share.
Mhm.
So
Are you saying that you're going to just put the link about it in the chat?
Yes, because obviously, you know, I can't do the whole file, but it's this is just the there. All right.
Okay, we've got it.
That site there is a very brief description of how a coalesce chart is determined. Now, a person can do a Google lookup, coalesce astrology charts, and you know you'll get there'll be more selections and so. But this was the one that I wanted to share with the group as a very succinct description of how this thing works.
Okay, thank you so much. We will have to explore that.
Now, you use Astrodeans, so I don't know if Astrodeans provides a coalesce chart option.
It doesn't, unfortunately. But what it does provide,
this was developed in 1992. So this is, again, what we have with this computer leverage is we can do stuff that people 20 years ago could not do at all.
yeah, and that's why it's now getting to life. This composite charts and this
Okay.
as well, they're really being discovered. You're right.
I wanted to pique your own curiosity because you've developed so much time, not only in the living of the relationship, but spent so much time in understanding the inner dynamics and symbology of the relationship without, oh, well, let me give her this. Here's another approach as a coalesce chart representing a harmonics between the actual harmonic between you and your partner's chart.
It was a very busy chart. I would be happy if you sent it to me, but I noticed something in it. I noticed the sun in the 4th degree of Aries. I don't know how you came up to this, and I will figure it out later. But this is my North Node. So I don't know.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, see, okay. Very provocative then, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so certainly you inspired me to explore further about this. But I just don't want to take up so much time with my example. I just want
I know. But you know, hey, you get to be the public example of because talking about the dynamics between how these things work.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if, let's say, you had an unstable relationship that only lasted for 6 months, and then you use your comparison to say, well, this is how these things screw up. But you're using it as an example of, hey, this is a great relationship. We've got big plans. We're progressing ourselves into the future.
Let's not make any conclusions because you never.
I know.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Okay,
Let's not predict the future.
That was my. Okay, I'll mute myself. Okay, here we go.
Now, the progress technique in astrology is showing us that people change, and they're meant to change, isn't it? And the progress composite is also showing how relationship is meant to evolve. Sometimes evolution means threatening. Sometimes it means separation. So who knows?
Yeah.
20 years what we're going to be dealing with. So yeah, that's a bit of a joke. But let's move on.
I sent you a chart of myself and the composite of the midpoints of myself and my very best friend. And it was so horrible when I first looked at it. I said, this is a junky method. How could this work? Because the chart looks so difficult. And this is a person who was meditating. I had come to sing on Maui. I was invited by a Japanese woman to do a tour there. And we were staying someplace. And while she was meditating, her guides came in and told her that I was on the island and she'd never met me. She went to the house the instant we met. We connected so deeply and we've been best friends ever since. So if you look at the chart, you'd think, oh my God, they must hate each other. This is unbelievable. But I did do research on it. And if you don't look at all those dynamics, I mean, who would want to be best friends with someone if this is your composite? You know what I mean? When I first looked at it, I was shocked. And we're still, I don't know, it just has so many difficult aspects. I would run the other way, I would think. But when we're together, it's so fabulous, and it's never stopped. I mean, we've had some times where we've had an issue or two, but basically it's like I've never met a woman that I resonate with. And I also resonate completely with her husband. Her husband and I used to go out and do all the whale and the dolphins because she didn't want to be at the water. And so we did all that. Every Sunday we'd go out in the kayak and explore that. But what I wrote about this was, for me, the sun being in the 4th house, so that a feeling of being home together, and Venus in the 4th house. We both love decorating. We both love beauty, and we've got our Venus and part for a fortune together there. They're conjunct in Taurus. So that is so true. I mean, some friend of mine came in and she said her husband must be confused when he goes into your house that he's not in his own house because the decorating is so similar. And another thing was the moon in the 7th house here, where and that shared feelings are very important. Intimate relationship in which sharing emotions is so important. And we're like a unit. We go out and have fun all the time, and people really love when they see us together. And we're both moon in Leo, which is very expressive. She's the one I do all the costuming and decorating, and we have these elaborate parties. Well, we used to before the current lack of party situation, but even so, we find our way. The Jupiter opposed ascendant is that it was signifies you will nurture and support each other through all kinds of adversity, and that you will share in the high points of each other's life as well. And she was she was attacked by a dog, a German Shepherd, who was a killer one, and her hands were so mauled and everything. It was I completely organized all the meals and things like that, helped her through that. And I went through a very rough divorce where I was being falsely accused by a revengeful husband who was working at fear and everything. And she and her husband just helped me through that whole thing where so I mean, she flew to Maui to help me put all my stuff together to move here to Ashland so that we could continue. We all met and lived 8 years in Maui. They came here first to the Ashland area, and I followed, which is so unusual. And the last thing to say about it, let's see, in my notes, where is that page? It had to do with the Uranus being also square the ascendant. We put no demands on each other. We're so telepathic that we can just call each other at the same time. And we trust in the relationship so much that there's no need to find any rules for it. It's very free. We could never put rules on each other's lives because I have my music and my career, and she's got her husband and her world. But I feel like there's somebody who knows who I am completely. And I know she thinks of me every day and is always monitoring and the same. So, but when I saw this chart, I was shocked at how difficult it looked. I think that
Something I would straight away disagree with you because yeah, it may look a bit scary with all these aspects, but in composites, many aspects like that mean dynamically activated relationship. No, no more than that, really. It's not the same thing, I believe, as an energy interaction, because here we've got no energy interaction. The composite is an abstraction. It's not like a synastry. If you have a synastry with that many squares in opposition, then maybe you would think that there will be tension quite a lot between you, because that's between you and another person. Here, this chart almost looks like your chart to me. It is almost like the same chart as yours. And that's how I think paying attention to the individual charts is a very big part of analyzing the composite. You have the moon in Leo yourself. You said that she also does. Well, not
Yeah.
surprisingly, you've got the moon in the seventh house in the same place, pretty much. Is she also an Aries because you are an Aries?
No, she's a Taurus.
Okay, well then they're close, and your average sun falls back to your sun. So you are kind of more leading the direction of the relationship in a way, the purpose, the direction. Then this Taurus thing going on. The Venus with the part of fortune, that's a big deal. And you've got your Mars-Venus conjunction in Taurus. Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, others don't see your chart here, but this chart to me is very similar to your personal chart. And
Okay.
because it's so much, the moon in the seventh points out that you would be kind of inescapably involved emotionally, and there'll be
Well, but you mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you mentioned when you do a composite midpoint, I've never done composite midpoints. I've always done synastries before. And when you said in composite midpoint, what's super important is the house they fall in. The seventh house would be a house-like partnership, and the fourth house, a house-like home. Like she's in this time, I see her, and I guess I'm so close to her husband as well, and he's an Aries man. So,
maybe he's part of the composite as well. He can become, you know that in astro.com you can calculate a composite for more than two people.
okay.
When you have a family, for example, yeah, when you have two parents and a child, for example, you can mix them all together.
Yeah, and her, yeah, and her. So anyway, but this has been, I think I'm trying to say that it has been a very, at first when I looked at it, I was just so shocked to look at this, but it is very dynamic, and we always are talking a lot too with that Mercury in the third. Our communication is fabulous and easy. I've never had a relationship that is so easy, but we are such different people, but we fit perfectly together. And then there's this whole soul inter thing that if you're meditating and told to go meet somebody, I think that's a pretty big indication of a soul connection.
You could have been family together as well in the past, because the South Node, which is not displayed here, but the South Node is in Cancer, and right in the beginning of Cancer. So that's, you know, how powerful these first degrees are. So your South Node, the past, I think that in the composite nodes are also important. They can show us how these two people were related in the past eventually, what their previous relationship was about. And if the South Node is in Cancer, then it kind of makes sense to me. This is, of course, just a suggestion. We don't know. That you may have been family, actually.
Yeah, she says we come from the same, we come from the same planet, you know.
Okay, well, very.
So, if whatever, but that's, I thought this has been and we're both we do work for the earth. We do ceremony at various points. In meditation, we'll get told to go to certain points and do a meditation there from our guides. I mean, I am such a different person, so strange compared to most of the people I know. They only know me as being kind of nice and friendly, but they don't know how strange I am in the sense of all the work I do on the inner and all the work I do for the planet, or, you know, the various things I believe in that our regular society doesn't hold as true. And she does the same thing. So we're both, I feel very like I'm almost not real. I'm just so superficial comparatively when I'm out in the world.
So that's
I
so
try
interesting in
normal.
terms of node. If we think of the North Node as another way of saying the purpose of the relationship, apart from the sun, then I remember you also have personally North Node in the 12th. So
I
it's
do.
obviously helping you work on your North Node, discover that. To her, you're kind of one step ahead in this social involvement, help kind of thing. Maybe if we go in this direction.
Can I add something as well?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. I just see a couple different indications here. I don't know about the full interpretation, but for example, having that Uranus Jupiter conjunction in Cancer that's on the descendant, for me, this speaks a lot of like divine relating, right? Jupiter is so strong and exalted there, and with Uranus, it's an access to your crown chakra, right? So it's kind of like super divine godly connection is what I first hear there. I also see Venus that is directly opposite the midheaven. For me, that's a lot of beautiful feelings, earthiness, pleasure, enjoying things together, feeling a kind of really beautiful, easy flowing relationship, again, with the earth. The one thing that the other thing that corroborates this is the sun opposite Neptune. And for me, most importantly, although I don't know why, because I don't know how to interpret this, I see that Spica is at the zenith. And she also, Spica sets at the same time as the sun rises, if we're looking at parans. And I don't know about the interpretation of that, but that's the first thing I saw. So I feel like it's really important for this chart.
Oh, excuse me. Let me just turn my phone off.
So she's got some of those other factors there. I just noticed, I didn't know this before, that she's got things like algo and so on, also on the chart. So what is the meaning of Spica? I've never heard of it. Tell us.
That's my favorite star. And we have the new moon on Spica.
It's fortunate. We have the new moon on exactly. I can tell you all about the new moon. I just wrote up about it. It's at it is having that Spica, but it is at 24 degrees Libra, right? The new moon, and it's the butterfly that has grows an extra wing on the left side, and it gives an unusual spiritual potency. And that's where my Neptune is exactly, and that's where the new moon is this 16th.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
really.
Mercury's Venus. He must be happy about that. Yeah, so you have Neptune there, Lauren, you said?
Yes.
I just wanted to, yeah, 24th. Did you say it's on the 25th or 24th something or 23?
It seems since 23, no?
Okay, so Pluto then.
Mine is 2350 or whatever that puts it at 24 in the Dane Ridger explanation. And that's about the butterfly with the extra wing on the third side. And that's what we're going this 16th. And it's a very special new moon. But I love, how do you say your name? Is it Emo or Emo?
It's Emo.
Emo. And I love everything you said. I wrote down that the MC, you said the Earth connection and the Uranus, and is that divine being on the descendant. I mean, I'm so glad I went through with this, because when I first saw it, I was so shocked. I thought, this is a bunch of bull. This can't be true.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
There is an optical illusion, I think, because I think the aspects to ascendant and MC mean something, but that's not the same thing as aspects between planets. They are very thick, these lines, and so the red is somehow occulting all the blue connections behind, as if they were not there, but they are. And I would just change the settings to suppress the aspects to the ascendant and MC, and you would have a different impression.
Okay. And yet I do see how that that combination and of Uranus, Jupiter in Cancer, how much that does fit with how that we leave each other to be. We don't worry about or don't make up stories about the relationship or anything. It just exists in a very independent way, and very, as Emo had said, a very, very divine connection. She's, you know, to me, she's the most developed woman I've met on the planet. Just that's how, and it's also, you can idealize that, but just for what I like in a person, she is. She's so developed in all the different ways. Everything about her, I always say, I like about you that you're so normal to me. All your extraordinariness is very normal. I'm so glad, Emma, you added that. That helps me see it too.
Well, great comments for everyone. I don't know about the ascendant and MC. I personally think that we even need to go further and calculate it with like quadrants, houses, so that we can see really where the houses are and whether really the Jupiter is on the DC with Uranus. But this is all right. It means a lot, and at the end of the day, it means the way you read it. You're used to reading it. But I think an aspect with the ascendant. This is something that Stephen Arroyo is pointing out a lot. That's not my idea, but he's saying don't disregard aspects with the ascendant or the MC because they're powerful. They're extremely powerful, even though these are not planets. The angles of the chart are very powerful. And when you have like an unexpected planet, but it aspects the ascendant, that's not an unexpected planet. Yeah, if that makes sense. But anyway, that's another story. Thank you, Laura. That was very interesting. Anything else you want guys to comment on this one or ask about this one?
And I like the idea though of that I should be also seeing the Pluto to the Sun and the Mercury, and that's very strong.
Yes.
And the Saturn to the Jupiter, very strong. And the Chiron to the Mars. So there are these other things as well as the more quincunx relationships.
And also this is very much, I mean, it just appears to me because I know your chart, how many repeated things we've got here. That's always the most significant thing about the composite. When the composite brings us back to the natal, and you have Pluto in Leo, you have Sun in Aries. I don't remember if they have the same aspect as they do here, but it's almost like this relationship is bringing you back to yourself.
It does. It makes me, I'm so happy. I love to be intimate and not have to, I mean, this group for me is a group I can be intimate with. I never imagined I could find strangers I could tell the truth to. And not just, I mean, in the sense of just be myself. And everybody in this astrological, I know that like, has been so kind, and it's like I must fit into this type of group.
You're also creating this type of group yourself, so.
Yeah. Because I like doing, when you, like Dwayne said, when we have a topic, and I did mention this because, you know, I wanted to understand more about how when people are needing, like this man has asked me, I've done his chart, I've done his daughter's chart, and he wanted me to do a chart of the two of them together. And I thought the old way of doing it, of the synastry, wasn't enough any longer. Now I have so much more I can offer.
Yes, that's great. Well, you mentioned Dwayne. Shall we give him the word now? Because I know he's got something prepared for us.
Okay.
Dwayne, are you with us? I just, let me stop sharing this and we can see each other again.
I'm here. I see that we're an hour and 41 minutes into it. Time for a break?
We still have a lot of time. I think we've got at least an hour to go if we go as usual. Is it that long, what you've got?
I'm okay with carrying on, but I just wanted to check in on that.
No, I don't. You don't necessarily have to be last. Like you usually have been, like presenting your presentation at the end, but it doesn't need to be at the end. So after
Yeah, you could be
there may be time for even more interaction.
you could be first one day.
You can be first. Next time you have to be first. I always
Actually,
leave you waiting, which is great.
well, what I was calling for was, do we want to have a break, a 5-minute break?
Very good idea. Very good idea. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
See you all in 5 minutes.
All right. This will be just an exploration. You know, I have very little experience in working with the composite chart, but the whole notion of the composite sun has been on my radar for quite some time. So just concentrating on that alone. And so I thought this would be an opportunity to explore the relationship that you and I, Redlina, have. And so I've leapt in and just in the intuitive way that I approach these sort of things, and that's what we have here then.
So looking forward.
So on the left is Redlina's natal, on the right is my natal, and in the center is the composite chart of our relationship. And I did check in with her to make sure I had birth time and so on correct. And you know, there's an obvious pattern there in terms of a gestalt for the relationship. It seems very focal. And I'd be interested in other people's commentary at this point. Just leap in if you have anything to say.
Can I?
Certainly.
Without having spent too much time on it, I was looking, I don't know why in my calculation it showed me our sun in the 7th. But anyway, it's on the descendant, so we can count it towards the 7th. I found something very interesting as a comment by Liz Green about composite sun in the 7th house. She said, these people need to be seen in relationship by others in a group. So kind of they do enter into the relationship really actively when it is happening at the backdrop of a group somehow, or society or whatever. So it's almost like a social purpose there involved in the sun around the descendant. So I was like, if we meet in real life and if we sit down together to talk and have coffee and just be friends, it won't be the same dynamic, it won't be the same interaction as if we are also involved in some sort of social work or interaction with others, so others see us from a distance as a you know, interaction. So I thought this has so much to do with how we actually met in this group here online, and how much we actually exist as a relationship within the group. Isn't that funny of how much this overlaps with what she has to say? And the moon in Aquarius obviously confirms that. That brings us to your sun in Aquarius, which I'm very happy about. And I just noticed that this degree that it's not the same degree, it's the next degree, but so close, 1 degree difference. We've got this Sun, Venus, and even the Mercury is close, around that same degree of Sagittarius that we were talking. My partner will have, and I will have a progress new moon next year in. Yeah, and it's a big deal. Mars on the 18th of Sag is my Saturn. So that's my Saturn degree. I don't know, maybe this is stimulating me to do work with Saturn and to develop things with Saturn in the 6th house especially. You really, like putting with your presentations that you do every week, you're also kind of putting the bar up for me, and I also prepare myself. So that's helpful, very helpful.
And vice versa.
Oh, you see? So
same for me. I mean, you've set a standard of relationship that's really up there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, because actually I see the whole thing in a slightly different 6th house way. I think really the sun is in the 6th and all those other planets, because I feel there is this lineage thing going on. I feel that from the first moment you join this, from the first time you join this, it's something like something in the air is asking me to learn from you. I mean, I want to learn from you. I see you as the elder that I want to kind of get from. And so that's a very typical sixth house interaction, because sixth house is so much, it's very little talked about in that way, but sixth house is so much about these kinds of so-called unequal relationships, where the inequality doesn't come from, you know, one being better than the other or something like this, but it's about one coming from a completely different standpoint, like age standpoint or education or whatever it could be. There is always this apprentice and teacher relationship, and the roles are not fixed. So sometimes one person could be the teacher, the other 5 minutes later the other one. So it's a very good learning curve interaction kind of energy.
Absolutely.
I love it. We have the same notes, so obviously the chart reflects that. We're both born, even though we're from different generations, we both have the same south node and north node in signs. So that's here. What is it with Saturn?
I
Okay.
also wanted to say that the North Node is in the 11th house.
Mhm.
And so houses being important, the North Node, you know, the Aquarian house of groups. And so by both of you being in this group, it also is part of your evolution, both of you, to bring
Absolutely.
something to the group.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the greatest beneficiary of this, a bit more than you, Dwayne, because my North Node is not just in Aries, but in the 11th house. So it's literally you're helping me go there and do that and facilitating it somehow. The relationship is facilitating it. It's all directly involved. I thought a lot of. Did you see the progressed one? Did you see our progressed one?
Yeah. Oh,
The progress composite between us?
for you and I?
I have it.
Oh, I haven't checked that.
Later I can show, but I when I looked at it today, I said, well, that looks very much like your personal chart. So I think later when you finish with your presentation, I can show it quickly. And I think you would be amazed how much the progress composite has to do with you. So it probably means that at this particular moment now, this period of time when we're doing these meetings and stuff like that, they may be a good moment for you to interact with me. I don't know. Something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, confirmed.
Right. What else do you have? What are your thoughts about it? I want to hear. Or other people's thoughts.
Is this the end of the presentation? I just wanted to know, are you going to open it up and we see something else?
Yeah, there's quite a bit more.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Sabian symbols, I just included this because the next part of the presentation goes into the Sabian symbols. It's likely, well, I don't know, are there those of you who are not familiar with the Sabians out there?
I'm not familiar, so it's really good to hear some stuff on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That are going to
I'm
watch
not either.
will probably not know them, so tell us.
So
Don't know.
I'm having the problem again. I can't move.
Now it moves.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to that and actually have it read out, but I can't read see the whole thing.
Now it's
So,
back.
yeah, please.
Sorry?
Will you please read that? I can't see it all, so.
No problem. Sabian symbols are images or metaphors clairvoyantly derived by Elsie Wheeler in 1925, which were interpreted by Mark Edmund Jones to trigger his understanding of each one of the 360 degrees of the zodiac separately, and also by Dane Rudier to create a schematic that outlines the journey towards self-realization. Each of the 360 symbols and explanations can be seen as a life mystery. Each of us will have our own personal take on it, and this can be as valid as any attempt the author makes to give objective meaning. And all depends on how capable you are at opening the subtle intuitive aspect of mind to unveil the mystery.
Thank you. So the Sabian symbols then are really powerful in opening up intuition, and I just love working with them. Mr. Burgess has really, he's forging a path into the Sabian symbols that's really wonderful. There's all kinds of resources on his website. You can explore each symbol individually through text and also through some videos that he's been creating for each degree. You can calculate all the Sabian symbols for your chart, have them displayed very quickly using the Sabian symbol calculator, and so on. So I just wanted to alert people to that, that resource. There's also Linda Hill, based on her book. This book's been around now, I think, for more than a decade. And her website also gives you direct access online. So the composite sun, this is, as I say, this is the primary entry point that I've had into the composite charts. And it, yeah, it just feels like a valuable tool. Composite sun then showing the focal purpose of the relationship, why you have come together. So just in terms of our natal suns, Redlina is a Scorpio sun, and here we have from the Bosch chart rendition of the zodiac. So it has its own take on the archetype.
Interesting.
And then the Aquarian archetype for myself. I mean, that looks like me, doesn't it, up at the top there? Just
You look very much like the top. He looked at you in order to paint it.
And then there's the two of us.
Yeah. Isn't it? There isn't any other sign that would describe it better than Sagittarius, I believe.
And would you please read the text on that?
Sure. So that's the degree, 23rd degree. So I see discovering essence. Is that the symbol, discovering essence? Really interesting. Any big change demands us that we hold firm to the deepest parts of our integrity while adapting to new conditions.
That comes up with the what we were talking about earlier about the Chinese laundry and so on.
Yes, yes.
Similar theme.
And my Uranus is 1 degree after that. So it's 23 something. So there's a 24th degree, in fact. Yeah. And that's right next to my Uranus. And you are an Aquarius sun. I guess there is we can look for connection here, maybe.
And I was quite fascinated to note in this image some of the aside from the archer, there's many other images here. Whoop. Okay, well, I guess we'll go to that anyway. You know, this is all about exploring consciousness. That's the way I relate to astrology. And years ago, this book, The Human Biocomputer, and also Center of the Cyclone, came out. John Lilly, he was a medical doctor who was doing legal research with LSD. He was the inventor of the sensory deprivation tank, the flotation tank that are widely available now. And he was doing pioneering research on communicating with dolphins. But at the core of it all, he was a consciousness explorer. And he came up with this aphorism that I've really kept in mind all these years as I explore the astrological world. And that is that in the province of the mind, what one believes to be true is true or becomes true within limits to be found experientially and experimentally. These limits are further beliefs to be transcended. In the province of the mind, there are no limits. So by keeping that explorer's credo, as I call it, in mind, I'm able to leap off into all kinds of explorations, all the while noting that whatever I'm encountering, it's either true or it's becoming true, and that there are limits. So it's always good to check in with basic assumptions. What are the basic assumptions I'm using in approaching this material? And I just want to kind of bring that into the field at this point, because this is very much an exploratory process. In that book, The Center of the Cyclone, there's this notion of consciousness engaging these three essential aspects of existence, of our existence as human beings. So we have the ego, the self, and essence. And this is a chart, I believe, is attributed to Gurdjieff initially. So we see on the left, it says Gurdjieff vibration level of states of consciousness. So this is a kind of even a quantitative assessment of our journey in consciousness. And I've found it useful to be thinking in terms of, transcending the limits of ego through self-directed exploration can lead us into a greater understanding of essence. And this to me is what this whole journey that the previous symbology has pointed to for Redlina and I, this journey of discovering essence. And we're discovering essence through choosing to explore as a group. This group dynamic, in my experience, is accelerating my growth. And ideally, that growth is about letting go of limiting beliefs and becoming more and more engaged with essence. And I really see that as being, a huge part of the potential of our relationship. Redlina, please.
Yes, that's Sagittarius 23. Is that continuing the description of the symbol, of the same symbol of the sun?
Yes.
Right.
So this is James Burgess.
Okay. A group of immigrants, as they fulfill the requirements of entrance into the new country. With faith, imagination, and expectation, we create a new life every day. In his book Music of Life, Hazrat Inayat Khan explains how all the clashing and banging in life is entirely the result of souls being in the wrong place, trying desperately to shift their position until they find peace. Each soul is unique and individual and has the capacity to express genius if it can find its place in the world. Unless and until this is done, then it is existentially restless. So we are never at peace if we are not well positioned. When an immigrant crosses the frontier, they are taking a big risk and know for certain that they will need to learn a great many things and train themselves in additional skills in order to find their place. Their entrance into another life is not unlike our own. We enter a new life every day, and each day brings its own different challenges and opportunities. This is the life attitude of a person of vitality. Daily life offers opportunities which we must grasp if we are to maneuver into better position to experience ourselves at our best. It's a snakes and ladders kind of game though. We can go down as well as up. The downs are typically evidenced by a diminishment of vitality, absence of creative flair, and the presence of impotency. If the heart is not engaged, the enthusiasm is a rare experience. then root level change is called for. We yearn to feel the certainty that we are authentic and in the right place, and this sometimes demands radical transformation. When we feel absolutely real, and if our work and relationships are all true and deep, only then can we know soul consciousness. Otherwise, we must find the courage to move on or risk stagnation at the level of soul. We have to leave the nest if we want to fly. To speak of genius is to court ridicule. Yet each of us has the potential to create something original out of nothing but thought. Here is the formula. First faith, then imagination, then expectation. Only the foolish and silly will expect success without ardent application. We need to learn how to make reality conform to our will by repeatedly learning from never-ending trial and error experiments. This is often called training, or sometimes knowledge management. This is the secret that separates out the goats from the sheep. It is so convenient for the sheep to accept life as disappointing, dismissing all the evidence that it is their own inadequacy that led to the poor attempts to create predetermined outcomes. The goats apply themselves properly and succeed. Well, wow, this is everything I have been thinking about, pretty much about the sixth house, my own sixth house, stellium, sun in the sixth house, and our own sixth house. And this symbol is just amazingly connected to the sixth house. I don't know if you would agree, but every single paragraph to me speaks sixth house. Transform yourself, find your place, find your purpose, your balance, and that's how you would be effective. That's how you would be vital. And well, you are my man, Dwayne, to help me work it out.
At your service.
So,
Any other commentary before we push on?
Look at the Savior symbols. You see how 23 Sagittarius has nothing to do with the sixth house in theory. But sometimes it does. And we have the sixth house sun with Dwayne.
Yes, and here I got into the North Node.
Yes.
Primarily because of the resonance between the images of the chart and the arrow of the archer. I mean, that was just the
Yes, I didn't notice that.
You get what I'm meaning here, yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
And then also, now this is going to Linda Hill's interpretation.
Okay.
And,
so that's Aries 16, that's our North Node.
Yep.
That's, by the way, very close to Aries. Aries, you know, Aries.
Ah,
it's
right.
On the 15th or something, maybe already on the 16th. So that's very interesting. Brightly clad brownies dancing in the warm dying light. The brownie symbol is a magical one, and it shows that help, given or received, is always available, especially if you believe it and welcome assistance that's offered. Sometimes your intuitive powers are at a real high, but your physical energy may not be. You may be tired and in need of help to get everything done, and a lot may be demanded of you. Have faith that there is often invisible assistance around you. You're always being guided and protected. Open your mind to possibilities and listen to the messages from within. Of course, you could be a brownie for someone else, assisting others when they need it. Reveling in nature, fairies and nature spirits, believing in guides, the magic of dusk, guidance and magic, synchronicity and things that arrive in the nick of time. else. But there is a caution as well. Self-delusions, not getting a true picture of what's happening in the real world, losing the plot, neglecting responsibilities, crying wolf, always needing help. Well, I don't think we are in danger of that.
No, and I mean, I just look at this painting and I see these brownies dancing in the warm dying light.
Oh my God.
I mean, is that a synchronicity or what?
I didn't see. Where are they? Show me.
Okay, look down to the left
corner. Yes.
We also have the part of fortune sitting there.
Yeah.
The symbol for the part of fortune.
Well, we must include in the composite the painter.
In the screen, I can't see that because your Aries 16 is right on top of the picture.
No, it's on this part of it that's not covered, Lauren. It's right at the bottom, you see? Right at the bottom left-hand corner.
Oh, okay, I see it. I see them.
Mm-hmm. And the part of fortune sign, interestingly.
Okay.
Well, this is not the part of fortune, to be fair. This is the aim of the archer, because that's the picture of Sagittarius, isn't it? That's the aim. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. Oh, you have it now. Yes.
That's a bit of a close-up. Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
and the unicorn.
The unicorn, yeah.
Unicorn with the spiral horn. Unicorns have definitely been showing up on my radar these last few weeks. I've never in the past really connected with it, but there's an image of a unicorn in a fenced little location, and the unicorn looks so at peace. I don't have the image here, but it occurred to me, well, that's like the lockdown. You know, the people who have turned inward and taken advantage of this time to be in their homes and be close and be introspective. This is a wonderful gift.
Does the unicorn have a planetary assignment, like Taurus is or whatever? Does the unicorn has ever been associated with one of the planets or any part of the sky or any of that?
Yeah, I'm not aware.
How about anybody in the group aware of anything on the?
It's probably part of the symbols of the horses anyway, but maybe it is. I don't know. Something to research maybe for next time. That's interesting. Very interesting to see.
There we are.
Thank you so much. When you said the lockdown, I just remembered that the very first meeting we did, I don't think you joined us on the very first one, maybe, I don't know, 5th, 6th or something like that. But the very first one we did was right at the start of the lockdown. So London was just closed, and we escaped from London on the last day. I came to Valencia, and on that same week, it was the first meeting. So
wow.
This whole, it's really coinciding with the times that we're living in. That initiative of ours.
Wonderful.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for concentrating on mine and yours. And this sixth house discovery thing for me was very, very, very interesting, because makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Thanks, Twin. That was really good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we still have time. Well, if we stay to the end, like we normally have these very long discussions, but we still have half an hour. So if anybody else has anything to share or to ask or to,
we could also talk about what we would like to do next week.
Definitely, yeah. That's always part of the end. So we have to decide. I think it actually comes naturally what we're doing next week, because it wouldn't make sense if we continue with this line of relationship charts, but now look at the synastry so that we can contrast them. What do you think? Go towards synastry, or maybe something else? Tell me what else comes to mind as a topic. You don't seem to be very enthusiastic about synastry. So if you have any other suggestions, I'm all open.
I have a question. Did you already talk about the solar returns at one point? Like how to see what's going to come up?
Actually not, and that was on my list for one of the next ones. So
okay,
that's a very good
okay. Doesn't have to be next week for me, but I was just wondering that would be a topic I would be interested in learning about, how to read my chart based on where I spend my birthday, the solar return thing.
Well, notice this will be such perfect timing for me because my birthday is coming up next week. So if I solar returns, that would be like to the point exactly. To the
Yay!
I vote for that. Yeah.
Okay.
I vote for that. Stephen, you?
Real quick point, you two, we're just sharing about the unicorn, and there is some esoteric astrology, a lot of links related to that. And I put one there for everyone, is that the unicorn is related to a spiritual fulfillment of the crocodile as a Capricornian function. So we look at let's say the unicorn, it's like, okay, a horse with a horn, so it's kind of Sagittarian, but it represents, the unicorn represents an esoteric mythological elaboration from the Capricornian sea goat, which is related to the crocodile. So this crocodile and the sea goat and the mountain goat and the unicorn, they have an interplay of symbology. So there's a lot on the Google search, and I did that, real quick, and I picked out an easy one there that just talks about the relationship between the esoteric implications of the unicorn relating to the sign of Capricorn as far as a spiritual fulfillment.
Interesting. Oh, thank you so much, Stephen. We'll check it out.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So I'm sharing again, but I remembered to show the chart of the progressed composite with Dwayne, if you want, because I think there was something Capricornian going on there. So let me see, that's correct. Yes, that should be it. Do you guys see that? So that's our progress composite way, and this is now Sun in Aquarius, I think very close to your Sun, right? Your Sun was close to the, let me
Is it 1504 or 415?
1504. 1504.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, my son's at 15, so yeah, that's bang on.
Yes, and the moon is in Capricorn in the 6th house. So the moon is kind of on the Sun, on the original position of the Sun by house. So I thought that may be interesting because I saw so many things here which I thought were similar to your personal chart. I don't know why, but it's similar. Anyway, I just quickly wanted to show that, but because I have forgotten. Yeah, and and the part of fortune in Cancer is just entering the 12, so I thought that's interesting. But yeah, we can go on and on with this.
Can you talk about what you define as the solar return?
The solar return is the return of the Sun to exactly the same degree of the zodiac every year of where it started its journey. So when you were born, the Sun was in one of the degrees of the zodiac. And the solar return, which I call the actual real birthday, that to me is the real birthday. And sometimes it is one day before or one day after the day that we are used to thinking of as our calendar birthday. But you know how the Sun is not exactly, making one full circle around. We are not making one full circle around the Sun, the Earth, in exactly the same number of days. There is a bit of a deviation every year. So every year I check at what moment my actual birthday will be. So that's when the Sun actually comes back to that degree. So I was born, for example, on the very first degree of Scorpio, 0 something, 0 degree something. And some years that happens, this transition between Libra and Scorpio happens on the 23rd of October. In other years, it happens on the 24th of October. So I don't always have this my birthday like you also, everybody, I think. Every now and then has a birthday, so the sun returns. And then what we're doing basically is we are making a chart for that moment. So on your birthday, but not actually on the day itself, but on that moment when the sun returns home back to its original place, we also register where everything else is. Yeah, and that's the solar return chart.
And so solar return, if you were plugging it into Astrodinks to find out,
Yeah.
I mean, just trying to prepare for next week, what I would do. I always think of the birthday as the solar return, but I would be looking for 4/26, if that's of Aries, and where it's going to, what day it's going to find, and then what would I do? Run a chart for that day?
Not just for that. Just use the tool. There is a tool there, like in the dropping menu, where you choose what kind of chart you want to see. Like today, we were seeing composite charts, there were transit charts, whatever. In the same way, there is in the list something called solar return chart. Yeah, so you choose that.
I was going to say that's where we get the saying "many happy returns."
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
happy return. Yes.
But I've never thought about doing a chart. Will it show all the progressions?
No, it's nothing to do with the progression. It's almost like a transit, more like transit than progression. Because basically what you're doing is on your birthday, you are making the chart of the birthday this year, but not exactly, not just randomly any time of the day, but that time of the day when the sun actually enters that same degree that the sun was when you were born. And so then you're going to get a new ascendant, a new moon, so you know how the moon is in a different sign in a couple of days. So this year, for example, you may have your, the sun is always in the same place, in every solar return chart, in the same degree, but it's not always in the same house. It's not always, the moon is different. So that's how you get like a 1 year temporary chart kind of thing. So this chart is only valid from that birthday to the next birthday, from that solar return to the next solar return. And
so if I'm halfway in between, being a March birthday, for next week, should I prepare the one behind me, whatever 4 degrees Aries is last year?
Let's explain that. So what happens is, this astro.com, I don't know about others, but when you do the calculation there, if you don't change anything, if you don't give it any dates or anything like that, what it's doing, it is automatically going back to your last birthday. So when I go there now, it is basically showing me the upcoming birthday. Sorry, the upcoming birthday, not the previous. So if you show it now, because you recently had a birthday, but it's in the past, yeah, so it's going to show you from your last birthday to the next year, 21 in March. But if I go there now, it is going to show me from last year, October, to this year, which is no longer relevant to me, because only a few days in, I need to calculate the next one. So if your birthday is upcoming soon, you have to change the date to next year down there. When you know, there is a date always, the current date. But rather than 2020, say 21. So then it's going to show you from your next birthday, say if it's in December, for example, it will show you from your next birthday in December to 21 December. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You, you know, if you make a mistake, you would see it and it will be clear that you need to. Yeah, Stephen?
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'll add a significant detail for Lauren, because doing your solar return, unlike a progression, a person is given a toggle choice to do the natal, to do the birth location or to do the relocation.
Oh,
so
yeah.
for you, you might find it interesting to do a solar return for just the natal longitude and latitude, and then to say, oh, let me compare my solar return for 2021 with the longitude and latitude of where I'm living now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it is there is a very interesting article by Dane Woodyer about the solar return on the website, where he's talking about himself and how when he relocated in the United States, he's French, and how this is exactly pretty much the spring equinox time, very close to you, Lauren, his birthday, and how in one country the clock had already gone forward. Do you know that, Stephen? And how he felt, as far as I remember, I read it a long time ago, he felt the change, he felt the transition a little bit earlier, the one that is related to his original birthplace, because obviously there is a big difference between when the sun comes back to its same degree in France and in the United States. So that is a very interesting read if you want to take a look at that. And this reminds me of our mutual connection with Rudyard, Dwayne. We never mentioned that actually our interest in his work is probably what brought us together initially in that group on Facebook.
And that's where I met both of you.
Yes, and that's
I wrote on it last night. That's how I know. I was talking with GX Jones and Gwen Allison, and just I thought nobody's presented the new moon. I guess I'll do it. So I put the new moon up there, and then that's how I knew that it was the butterfly that grows the spiritual power, extra spiritual power. This month is our image.
Yes, it's a powerful one. But I went back to Rudyard because I wanted to say the Mars in our composite chart with Dwayne is in 18th degree of Sagittarius, and that's Rudyard's ascendant. I don't know if that's just an interesting coincidence, I believe. Yeah, it's just something that this whole Sagittarian thing is something that I didn't mention before is very like looking for generalizations, for meaning, for essence, as you said, Dwayne, rather than just speaking, rather than just like exchanging ideas more in a Gemini style.
Someone has a dog barking loud. Who is that?
Yeah, I'm so like I can't stand it anymore, but it's somewhere outside.
Oh,
I'm sorry, guys. It's not my dog. I don't have a dog. Just here in Valencia, there are so many dogs, and yeah.
Is that where you are right now? You're in Valencia?
Yes. When you see this background behind me, even though it's probably going to change because these calendars are expiring in a few months, but this is my Valencia place. Yeah. Come and join, everyone. I would love to show you around.
I've been to Valencia, of course, because I used to take the boat from or a plane or a boat to Ibiza. I think the boat, I lived in Ibiza all those years, and then I usually did the boat from Barcelona, but from Valencia, I think maybe there's a boat too,
yeah,
but it definitely a plane.
I haven't been, but I know there is, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Right, well, great. Solar return then for next time.
Yes.
I have a question.
That sounds good.
Okay, any other suggestions for future topics or anything else you guys want to ask, comment?
Yeah, I have a question really quick. Just to recap, really, because since I was mobile as I was tuning in, the synastry report is, okay, synastry and composite. Like, so is synastry for both friends and intimate relationships?
For any sort of connection. There is no limit.
Synastry is for everyone. So in composite is for the relationship, right?
No, both of them are for any sort of pairing of two or more people. You know, it's just energy with the synastry, it's energy interaction. So how the energies of one person mix with the energies of the other and how they affect each other consequently. Well, the composite is something like we come together, we meet. I mean, you can meet a friend, you can meet some of your family or somebody totally unknown on the street, whatever. And then what do you produce together as an energy field, which is something third, something separate from both of you? That's the composite. Yeah.
Okay. The synastry and then the composite. So you can do, well, okay, I got it. So I want to see which one I'm curious to know with my friends, just like because we've been friends for a while. So now I'm curious to know, like, why are we friends? What the star is going to say? Why are we friends?
I would do this. If I want to know why I'm with someone or friend with someone, I look at the composite. If I want to know how is it working, you know, In what way? What's the dynamic? What's the feeling about it? What's the effect of it? That's when I look at the synastry.
The synastry. But the composite, I mean, my friends are beautiful and I love them. I just wanted to see like what in the stars shows that. And so I just think that would be a really fun project for me.
Very much.
That's how I was never done that with my friend. I just assumed it's great. And it was so good to have such a shock when I first looked at it, but then now to have the discussion about it makes more sense. But I did do where you place them on top of each other, which is the synastry. I looked at that, but then I thought, no, Rodalina said she really likes the midpoint.
Okay.
So
I wanted to look at that for today, and that's why I brought that forward.
Yes, we can still do the synastry at one of the next sessions to look at that option as well. But personally, I have a bit of a preference to the composite because for couples, not for every situation, but for couples. And the reason why is because to me, it's a little bit Sagittarian, I guess, not that much Gemini way of doing things. But for me, it's more important why. What's the purpose? What's the point of these people being together in the first place? Yeah, they may have very good attraction, but this attraction then may change, or they may have a certain project together, but then this changes. But what's the real purpose of why they need to interact in the first place? What needs to be produced out of this? And that's the composite. So if the composite is showing that, I mean, it can show, if we go deep into it, that it's quite so almost like they've got very little to contribute, and so that this relationship in this way has very little future or very little meaning. No, not future, but meaning more than anything else. And for example, if it has very little to do with their own charts personally and things like that, and the opposite. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes the composite can compensate problems in the synastry. So, and if we identify very much with the relationship itself and where it's going and what it's there for, and if this is really conscious from both sides, this can help overcome some of the energy dynamic, discrepancies, let's say, in the synastry that may exist between them.
And I wanted to ask about next week for doing the solar return. If we're going to present something about it, what are we exactly going to look for? Could you give us any focal point? We're looking at what has happened or what may happen, or what would we present?
This is mostly a prediction technique, which I don't like very much, the solar return technique. It is really trying to figure out what the concentration of that year will be for the person, what they would be getting involved in the most. The position of the sun by house is the key factor. Other things are also important, but the most important factor is what house is my sun this year in? Yeah, for example, my sun returns to the 6th house this year where it was originally. But last year it was in the 10th house, I believe. So it's a very important thing where you're going to be shining your light in that particular year, what you would be doing, whether it would be more of an introverted year or something involved more with outside things. So the sun is one focal point. Also, the moon is important, of course. Where is the moon? That would ultimately be the moon on the day of your birthday. So that becomes a solar return moon. And all the aspects. So it's treated like a birth chart, but just as this year's birth chart. Yeah. And I find it very, very accurate, actually, to be honest. Even though I don't do it a lot, I only sometimes do consultations for a solar return, but I find it extremely accurate. This year, for example, mine was extremely accurate. And yeah.
And this year was, you said, the 10th house?
Not only that, it was also, I had a Sagittarius ascendant this year with Jupiter on the ascendant. And this is something very non-typical to me, like being so social, being so much in this role that I am right now. This is something very new to me. Never happened before. And these meetings that we're having are started for me this year. So it's been a very Jupiterian experience all around. A relatively good luck year, everything going much more smoothly so far, knocking on wood here, so far so good. I mean, compared to what I expected. But something shifts every year. I was like, our sun gets depleted. Every year it's got its new reservoir of energy, and as the time passes until the next birthday, we slowly but surely deplete the vitality. And that's probably why many people feel very, very down just the week before their birthday, or the week, very close to their birthday. That's my explanation, because I think we're getting, to the end of our resources of vital energy. And then on the new birthday, we get a new delivery, but that new delivery is now mixed with all the other, with the state of the universe of that moment, which is the whole chart of that day. Yeah. And
Yeah, that makes so much sense about you saying that when their birthday is approaching, they get a little down. I'm one of those people. I didn't understand. I just thought maybe, I'm like, what have I done with my life that's not up to par where I'm getting down? But I like how you put it, that it's just like the energies are just being depleted, and then we have our birthday and ta-da!
Yes, it's some sort of a recharge happening. That's how it's meant to be. But yeah, it's kind of setting a new story for the year as well. That's interesting about it. And there are patterns. Next week we are going to discuss that more in detail. But there are patterns of what houses the sun falls into. So certain number of years pass, and the sun is again in the 10th house. Then usually it goes to the 6th after the 10th. There is a scheme there, which is very interesting. I read a book about it, and I have to remind myself about it. But it's not random. It's quite.
And so, what would you like us to each calculate, if we want, to calculate the sun and the position by house of the sun and the moon, and discuss how it's been relevant or what we see?
Well, you can do some sort of a walk through your own solar return, either the last one or the next one. It would be interesting to look at last one, see if your birthday is further back in time. So
I'm almost halfway between. Yeah.
Yeah, so that you can see, okay, this was my last year's solar return, and let me tell you how that was correct or not, for example.
And who knows? I mean, because everything changed because of COVID. All my concerts, everything was canceled, and I began astrology as a way to, I just had always done it in the back burner, and now it's like front and center. And but I don't know if that kind of thing will show up in a chart, but we'll see.
I think it will. You just need to trace it. So check it out.
Okay, I will try.
Check it out. And, yeah, we can see it all together next time. I'm going to do probably my last year's, but yeah. Yes, Stephen.
Well, Lauren, I'll make a suggestion as far as homework for next week, because we've been discussing multiple themes. So you do a solar return, for, let's say, 2021 coming up, relocated. I mean, do you live in Ashland or Medford?
Right, halfway in between.
All right. So on the Google map, you can get the longitude and latitude to put that in for the relocation. What I would suggest is that you then take your solar return for 2021 and do a progression of your chart for that birthday, and then do a relationship chart between your solar return and your progression. And that would give you a very interesting picture of just what you were referring to, how your plans had been interrupted. Your progression was what you were doing, and then the solar return is like what's happening. So how do I mix together what my direction was with what's happening now? And that was just a thought that was occurring to me, because that's what I will do for next week. I'll do a solar return for my day of birth, and then I'll do a progression to that day, and then I'll do a Davidson comparison, because I'm not looking at mashing midpoints together, but I want to see a relationship between the two charts. And the Davidson chart I can animate as a progression in time within the year itself.
Okay, as you like it. Just as long as you use solar.
Now I'm only sharing the thought of how I'm going to approach my own data for next week, but I wanted to kind of share that with Lauren.
And I appreciate that, because that's what I'm asking, since I've never, I think I've had a solar return chart done way long ago, but I've never really explored it. That's why you say many happy returns of the day. Okay. And I know, and you do come back to your your Aries or your whatever sign you're in, but I've never thought what to do with it to make it more interesting and also useful. I like practical things.
Yes, and this thing that even though it's a bit more advanced, what Stephen suggested is something that is always relevant, the progressions with the solar return. Because, like, for example, I noticed that this coming year, my next birthday, the solar return moon will be in Aquarius. And my progress moon is at the same time in Aquarius. But these have nothing to do with each other, generally. So I thought, okay, that's really important. And I think it is important. Because from two different
what day is your birthday? I know, of course, I have it in my file, but
the 24th of October.
The 24th of October.
Yeah, 9 days.
Not like you're counting, though, right?
No, not that I'm counting. Just 33 will be. Yeah, even though. Yes.
You will be 33.
I will be 33. Yes, now in a few days.
I'm
sorry?
No, you were not born in 88, were you?
87. 87.
87.
You sometimes look at perfections with the solar return as well.
What was that again, Heather?
Do you sometimes look at perfections with the solar return? So the perfection year you're in for that birthday year. So when you have your birthday, you'll also be in a new perfection year. So if you're 33, you'll be in 36, 35, a 10th house.
Yeah, that's exactly the patterns I was talking about. I didn't know they were called perfection years. I've heard the term, but I'm not very familiar with this technique. So yes, but what you're talking about is exactly this pattern of return of, the sun to particular houses every, I don't know, maybe you tell us next time how this works.
I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing. Are you talking about the way that the solar return years follow a kind of pattern of 3? So it goes 10th house, 8th house, 5th house a few times.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, that's different to a perfection year. So a perfection year is when you are born, you're in a you're having a first house year, you're 0 to 1, and then on your first birthday you move into a second house perfection year from when you're 1 year old to 2, and then on your second birthday you move into a third house perfection year, and it keeps going all the way around the chart. So when you're 13, you're having a first house perfection year.
I see.
And it keeps going like that. So I'm now in a 5th house perfection year, and the ruler of my 5th house is Mars. So Mars is my Lord of the Year type thing. So when you look at a solar return chart, so of course you look at your ascendant sun and moon, but you also look at the
ruler of the house that you were meant. So in this case, if I'm 33, it needs to be a first house, is it? Because we've got
no, because that would.
First house. So 2 times 12 is 24, and then we've got
13. Use 13, not 12.
It's 36 minus 3, so we're going from the first house back 3 houses.
All right. Okay.
I think it's 10th house.
That's
but you can pop that into astro.com and
does it show you that perfection year?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never used that. I mean, the first time I hear this technique, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's quite good because it means the transits from that planet are often, you find those transits are the most potent as well.
Okay, so the transits of the planet ruler of the house, the perfection year house. Right. Wow, so many things we've got to learn, isn't it?
Sorry, just add
that was great. That was great.
I really appreciate having you say that.
Okay, so last year I had a 4th house perfection year, and Venus was my ruler. In my solar return chart, I had Libra rising, so Venus was ruling the chart as well as being my Lord of the Year, and Venus was conjunct the Sun in the 10th house. I thought I was going to become a rock star, but it didn't happen. But I started up invoking Venus instead. So I changed jobs, as it were, as well, musician to astrologer. And so that kind of worked that way.
So that's where invoking Venus comes from. That's the history behind it.
No, I've only just realized that when you were talking and I was thinking about my last solar return year, I've only just realized that that was part of it. Yeah. No, the name came from loads of other places. I've got Venus on the ascendant
I
as
was
well.
going to ask you, where is your Venus? What sign?
Cancer.
Cancer on the ascendant. Oh, that's a brilliant position for Venus, isn't it?
Yes, that's okay.
Very warm and welcoming, and usually connected with beauty. One of those iconic beauties. Many of them have Venus on the ascendant, and a lot of women with Cancer ascendant are quite, I don't know. Attractive is not the right word. It's something else, a bit more warm kind of attraction. I don't know how to express it.
I'm studying with the London School of Astrology as well at the moment, and we did a class where they had a mystery guest. So we looked at a chart for an hour. We discussed a chart for about an hour, and then the person came on. It was a man, and he was Cancer rising with Venus on the ascendant as well, same degrees as my rising and ascendant as well. But he was an international jazz musician. I can't remember his name, unfortunately, Sean somebody. But he definitely wasn't, he looked very moon-like. You could really see the Cancer rising, very round face. But you probably wouldn't say he was a pin-up or anything. But I have noticed you do see it with a lot of singers, Venus in the a lot of singers have Venus in the first house. Yeah, so not necessarily classically good looking, but something really warm and inviting, maybe.
Yes. So
I've been told that I have the Venus in the Taurus conjunct the Mars, and that is Venus in the Taurus gives me the ability with the throat.
Yeah.
Singing.
Of course, yeah, a nice throat, yeah.
Yes, but that's more to do with the Taurus than with the Venus, if that makes sense, yeah? Because that's the sign that's giving the Venus. The Venus in...
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's another, because she's saying she was a musician turned astrologer now, and like me.
Oh, yes, you've got this in common.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still going to always be a musician.
Yeah.
My whole life as a musician from when I was born, so it's not going away. But in order to keep up with everything and following my natural, I almost feel when I give a chart reading, it's almost like I'm preparing for a concert. And when the chart reading is done, it's the same kind of relief and also an uplift of energy. It doesn't drain me. It gives me more energy. So I always check in after I do an activity. Do I feel worse or do I feel better?
Yeah. I'm interested in the solar returns next week because I'd love, some of you guys have got so much more experience than me, and I have been absolutely anxious about my current solar return. I don't think I've ever had an 8th house solar return yet, but it just looks like the ones that you read about online where every single thing on it is just horrific. And
I don't believe that, whatever it is. I never believe that, whatever it is. I think it's this. No. If we manage to step away from that a little bit, at least from that thinking of positive and negative in astrology, we would benefit so much more from it, because there isn't really such a thing going on. It's more how's it called? Self-fulfilling prophecies. When we think
I guess because I've done the course with the School of Traditional Astrology, and there's lots of, when you see certain configurations, there's lots of sucking the teeth and oh dear,
Yes,
but I've seen the Vedic. I'm part of 2 different groups of Vedic astrology online. I'm not like this group where I participate, but just in general. And some of the things that are said seem so terribly like superstition, or they just seem so ridiculous that I feel like it doesn't fit the idea that we are evolved souls.
Absolutely.
And also that we're coming to understand the holographic nature of the universe, and that what we think and what we believe begins to manifest. So it's so important to put positive spins on everything, so that you know, better than expected, it's all going to, you know, that because we are creators. We create our reality at some level of holographic understanding.
But it's not just about making things too positive as well. Like, for example, looking at the 8th house sun and trying to make it kind of forcefully positive. It's this positive thinking that we need to, because it's got its own challenges, but I believe this sort of approach to astrology that we are all witnessing in other places, it also has a great deal of not understanding the symbols, not really understanding deep enough what this is all about, what this language is really about, but more kind of on the surface level superstition, as you said, or some sort of let's satisfy somebody's curiosity and be more, I don't know. Anyway, I'm quite critical, but let's not go into this. Unfortunately, guys, it's time to say goodbye. It's already.
It would be great, Heather, if you do your presentation.
Yes. I mean, no, Heather, if you want, if you don't mind. I don't know. I don't remember if you shared your chart details with me on the link, but we can use your chart. Solar return is one of the examples for next week. Yeah,
that's fine. I don't want to. I don't need everything sugarcoating. I'm not. I quite like looking at the darker stuff personally. And I suppose it would be a good example.
I think so. And anyone else, if you guys want to, just let me know if you can, just very quickly. So I make sure I distribute the time in a way that, because I normally don't know where this is all going to get us as we start talking. But if I know there were a few charts prepared, then I can give you the chance to start from there. Okay? Anything else?
I just have one final one. I wanted to know if for next week, would you be able to already add me into the registration, or?
You do it every time for itself. So every time I post about the event, you do exactly the same thing. You don't need to enter your details again and again. No, don't worry about that. You just skip that. You know, basically, I cannot change the system. That's how the system works. But if you have once sent me your birthday details, every next time you can just go say, I don't want to share or something like that, and I would know. But it's when you register for the event, that's when I ask you for the details, and I usually try to have all of your charts prepared before we speak, so I can get it if we need to see it.
Okay, yes. I was just, I don't want the charts. I was just saying, since I was planning to come next week.
Yeah, that's what I meant actually. That to come next week, you just need to do it again for the new event, because there will be a new event. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was late because all of a sudden I looked everywhere and I forgot to register. And so I had to go back to our, to one of our sites where you post, and I had to do it. And so I came in a little late because
no problem.
I forgot to pre-register.
I hope it's easy enough, this whole process. I hope it's easy enough, but that's very helpful to do it this way for me, because then I get the whole list of your emails, the whole list of your names, and then I can easily send you stuff.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Okay, well, thank you too for being here every week with us, and I look forward to next time.
Yes.
Yeah. Have a great afternoon, evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.